Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this webinar on the NABERS Co-Assess Process hosted by CitySwitch. Just do a bit of a welcome to everyone. My name's Jack. I'm the City of Melbourne Program Manager for this the CitySwitch program. I'll do a bit of an introduction about CitySwitch later in my section and about what we're all about. But I might just get started. If my co-presenters could let people in from the waiting room as we go along, that would be great. So if anybody's having any issues seeing anything, and just let me know. So before we get started, acknowledgement country. Since it's obviously a remote meeting, we're all in different country today. I'm currently working from home on Wadawurrung country here in sunny Geelong today. So maybe take a time, at the beginning of this meeting to reflect on what country you live on, work in and play on. Let us know on the chat where you're from today, where you're dialing in from today. And the City of Melbourne, we're on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong Woiwurrung. We respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands of the Kulin Nation and pay respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. We accept the invitation, the Uluru Statement from the Heart, and are committed to walking together to build a better future. Just a bit of housekeeping. What we'll do is basically we'll run through the presentations today. Add your questions to the chat and we will get to them at the end of the presentations. There's a dedicated Q&A sections for the last 20 minutes. And when we do that, raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question via your video and audio, and then I'll enable your video and audio so that you can ask that question. Our agenda for today. I'm doing a little bit of an introduction and then we'll hand over to Zoe from NABERS talking about how the co-assess process actually works. And then me from CitySwitch, I will talk to you about how you can go about improving your NABERS Tenancy Energy rating. Then we've got Lina Rico Gomez from Charter Hall and why Charter Hall sees the value in the co-assess process from a landlord's perspective. And then we've got Abby Balakuma from CBRE who does the assessments for Charter Hall, the NABERS co-assess assessments. Talk a little bit about the process and why it makes sense from an assessor perspective. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Hand over to Zoe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack. So what are we here to talk about? How CitySwitch tenants and landlords can collaborate to achieve net zero and sustainability goals. My really short title for this section. I'd like to join Jack's acknowledgement of country. As I said in the chat, I'm joining from Gadigal land today. And I'm here to talk about NABERS. For many of you, you will be familiar with NABERS. You will have done NABERS ratings before. I'm still going to do a bit of a 101 NABERS introduction before I get into the co-assess process. So bear with me if this is old news for you. What is NABERS? The National Australian Built Environment Rating System. We rate buildings. And when I kind of think about the high level of what it is, NABERS is a language for sustainability. It takes a whole bunch of different data points and kind of complex interrelated information on a building and turns it into something that's really easy to understand. Just like your sticker for efficiency on your fridge or washing machine, it is a easy language for what's the performance of this building. It's not just an achievement, it also tells us that there's opportunities for upgrades and there's space to improve. And that is always something that I do try and remind people. Don't see a lower star rating as something to be kind of upset about. It's telling you that you've got savings that you can make. If you've seen a NABERS presentation before, you have seen this old slide. We kind of leaning into two main parts of what a NABERS does. It is the environmental footprint of the building, so all of those data points put together as annual figures, and it's also that comparison. So when you look at that star rating, it is actually comparing your building or tenancy or site to buildings of a similar attribute, similar makeup. So that's based on many thousands of data points, so that you're not being compared to a building of a totally different size and the consumption figures are obviously going to look really different for different parts of the market. Our points of differentiation, we're robust. We're looking at metered performance data. It's reasonably inexpensive in the world of ratings, and it's that direct comparison to similar buildings as I just went through. That metered performance is kind of tied to that point around being technology neutral. So these are our principles of the rating. When we're looking at the metered performance, we're not looking at attributes in your building like the kind of HVAC system that you've got in place or other technology solutions that you've got. We're collecting the performance data and the consumption data. It's a really useful tool for comparison. It counts what's within the operational control of the part of the building that you're rating. So for the base building, for the parts of the building that they don't control, like your tenancy, if you're a tenant, that's not part of the base building rating. And it's reasonably simple. I think Abby and Lina, you might tell us differently, but we've taken that down to the most impactful points of data. So we're not collecting 200 questions off every person when they're doing a rating. It's to the most impactful part. So it's as simple as we can make it while still having it really rigorous. And what does it do? It helps you measure and manage. And it is an extremely useful tool. It's been around in Australia for the office sector for over 20, 25 years. And we've seen really amazing results. These are the average energy improvements that have been made in the office sector. And those are being replicated in other sectors as we roll out tools. So shopping centres, we've had a tool for a while, and we've seen really similar trajectory of improvement. We are ever expanding the sectors that we cover. So we've got office tenancies have been around for a long time, and we're rolling out to different building types as we go. Currently, as you see on the slide there, schools and retail stores are in development. And started out measuring energy and water. We're now, looking to help people measure across waste, indoor environment, and we do have a carbon neutral pathway for buildings. So it's not an organisation carbon neutral rating, but it's sort of using NABERS as a shortcut to get your building rated carbon neutral. Which part of the building is rated is always a really good question, and excuse my extremely simple graphic on this slide, but this sort of is to break down kind of one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have around NABERS. So if you see on the front of the building, there's a plaque and it's got a NABERS rating on it. That will actually be for the base building. So that's the part of the building that's controlled by the landlord. You can also rate the tenancies on their own, and the whole building can also be rated as one. So those are the different what we call scopes within the building. And each of those parts of the building can be rated individually. So you as a tenant and many CitySwitch members do go and just get their own tenancy rated, and that's just an on your own process. Landlords, with that plaque that they have on the foyer of the building or the outside of the building, they have that because of an act in Australia around building disclosure. So that's mandatory disclosure of the performance of the building. If you want to know more, you can have a look at the CBD program. And so your landlord is very likely to be getting a rating for the base building on an annual basis because of this legislation. For the landlord, there's additional benefits, obviously meeting that legislation, but also being able to demonstrate your performance, working out the energy use, an opportunity to engage with tenants around the performance and attract tenants, and for building reporting, including the GRESB platform. When you're a tenant and you're looking at getting a rating for yourself, you've got really similar benefits internally in the organisation. You can compare yourself against others. You can compare your assets across your portfolio, different offices within your business, measure, manage, improving your performance, any internal reporting, and getting recognition for the work that the sustainability team is doing. Kind of looking outside the business, there's benchmarking and reporting that you can do. There's cost reduction, reducing your environmental impact, and I kind of call these the big three. If you want to get buy-in internally to get a tenancy rating, these are the things that you want to talk about as benefits to the business. New tool launched earlier this year is the renewable energy indicator portion of the rating. Before this year, we were counting green power, on-bill green power only. And obviously a lot of tenants, a lot of businesses are doing PPA arrangements, having some on-site, a whole bunch of different ways that energy is coming into the business or into the building with different renewable sources, and we just weren't able to adequately recognize that. So we developed the renewable energy indicator. That's on all ratings now. So there's no additional process other than reporting those other sources of renewable energy. The score that you get is the percentage of renewable energy compared to your total energy use. So it's a really simplified way to represent that. And we're recognizing, as I said, a wider range of renewable sources, which is really great. And it's really great to see those scores starting to come in now. So you're all on board, you're really keen to get a NABERS rating. I've done my job. What do you do to get involved? CitySwitch is there to help you. They've got heaps of information on the rating process, etc., etc. I do have some grants in New South Wales only at the moment out of the NABERS program, and I've got a little slide on that, and the Co-Assess tool that we're going to talk about. So just quickly spruiking the grant that I've got available at the moment. Unfortunately, this is just a New South Wales grant, and it closes on the 1st of December, so the current round is coming to an end. It's a really simple and easy process, and probably for tenancy, you're looking at not being able to do a water rating, but for sites where you can do water, it's up to 4,500 per site. So get in touch if that's something that you're keen to do. It's for first-time ratings. So co-assess process. I'll give a little bit of a background and kind of the how and why of co-assess, because I think that really helps put this into the frame. You're keen to do NABERS ratings. This is sort of the description of what a co-assess rating is. So back to that slide with my very simple graphic. Your base building rating is being done anyway. And there are tenants who are doing their own ratings and their own time and schedule. We kind of looked at that and looked at the process, and if you've been through a base building rating or you've been contacted by your landlord because they're at the point where they're doing their base building rating, there's actually quite a lot of information that's collected on the tenancy performance and on the tenant information in order to carry out that base building rating. So we looked at that and thought, what can we do to make this better? If we've got both of those ratings happening at this, happening at different times, and at the time where the base building rating has been done, they are coming to the tenants and engaging with them. Could we do that together? So the co-assess process came out of that efficiency. The assessor is already coming on site. You've got motivated landlords and potentially motivated tenants in the building, and could that be done together? So that's the driver. It's going to save people time and effort. There's a cost benefit. The assessor's already there and they're talking to the landlord, get them to do a little bit of extra work to do the tenancy ratings at the same time. It's a great mechanism to engage between the landlord and tenant. And when those ratings are lodged to NABERS, it's actually a lot easier for us to do the audit all in one go, because we're looking at the same information for both the landlord base building and for the tenancy ratings. So we also offer quite a discount on the fees that we charge for the certification process as well. So lots of benefits. You'll hear more of that from Abby and Lina, kind of how that process works and some of the, I guess, barriers and things that will make it a little bit easier. But it is about simplifying that process. What does the tenant need to do? Obviously, agree to be rated or be keen to get rated. And they're providing those 12 months of billing data. And there are some cases where the building owner may already have that access to that data for embedded networks, etc. And allow the assessor to come and do the site visit into the tenancy. And so they're already on site doing that at the base building level. Get it all done at once, saves everyone time and effort. If that is something that you're interested to do, it's sort of a, how do you get people together in the room to talk about it is the question. So one of the things that I always kind of prompt people is actually start the conversation. If you're the tenant, call up your landlord and say, hey, we're hearing about this co-assess, or we know that you're doing NABERS ratings every year. We're really keen to get involved. It's something that we would like to do. Are you interested in doing co-assess? Ask them questions about the performance, get involved in that conversation in general. They'll if they're keen to do co-assess, they'll get you on board and take through the system, and you'll get the certificate in the end. And so the landlord can kind of facilitate a lot of that work. You're not going out and having to contract your own assessor as well. The mechanisms to get in that room to start that conversation, I think, are often the sustainability person in a corporation who's sitting in a tenancy may say, well, I've never been asked for any of that data when my landlord is doing the rating. So I've never heard of this before. It's never come across my table. They may be asking those questions of quite a different part of your business. So they may be coming to your facilities manager or your office manager. So make sure that you're getting involved in that conversation. Almost every landlord will have a tenant rep meeting, and they are woefully under attended. So find out when the tenant rep meeting is happening. They may be keen to get a green team or a kind of green committee happening in the building as well. And if you're not kind of expressing your interest as a tenant, then you're missing out on that opportunity to get involved. So find out what your building is doing. Your office manager or your facilities manager may be already attending tenant rep meetings. Attend along and ask some questions about the NABERS rating, see if you can get involved in co-assess. So I think that, have a chat within your business, because it may just be that those questions are not coming through to you as the sustainability person. I say make building besties. I think that it's really useful to both know other tenants within your building, and that tenant rep meeting is a really good way to do that, and become friends with your facility manager for the building as well. And those landlords are often extremely keen to talk to their tenants about this stuff, but they don't want to bother you. So it's sort of breaking down that barrier and becoming friends, building a bit of vertical community within the building around, your neighbours on other floors may be really keen to do sustainability stuff as well, and that can open other conversations. And there's mechanisms, of course, like green leases where you can build in clauses around doing co-assess together, and those are really good mechanisms to take advantage of. I've got a nice graphic there from an old resource around the Tenant and Landlord's Guide to Happiness, and I think that model of working together is something that everyone should lean more into. It's super powerful, and co-assess is just one of the benefits that you can get out of this. It's obviously, from NABERS perspective, I'm going to say that's the great thing that you should do, but having a better relationship with your landlord and the facilities managers on site is going to have a whole bunch of other benefits, and you can get a lot more information out within your business around the waste performance and other things that are happening in the building. So thank you so much for the time, and get in contact if there's anything that NABERS can do, and I'll hand back to you, Jack. Thank you.
Helps to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Zoe. So yes, well, you've decided that you want to do a NABERS Tenancy Energy rating, or you have done one as part of the co-assess process. You're kind of underwhelmed with the result. Maybe you can reach out to CitySwitch to see how you can help improve that rating over time. Just a little bit of an overview, because I know that some people in the room, although this is a a webinar for CitySwitch people, I know that we advertise this publicly, and there might be some people that aren't CitySwitch members. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview first. Basically, we are a free-to-join program that's run by a coalition of capital city councils and a few regional councils now as well. So, like I said, I'm from the city of Melbourne, but we've got the city of Sydney in there, North Sydney, Adelaide. Who else am I missing? Waverley, city of Yarra as well. So there's, your council area that has an office, you will probably be participating. And we also take membership from outside those areas, and Annie, who's online, manages those contacts. Basically, we're there to provide education and knowledge support for getting office-based businesses to net zero emissions. We've got like a 7-step pathway that we think is a good sort of mechanism to get you from not knowing anything to being net zero and getting there by 2050. What you can get, basically, we have a whole bunch of different themes, and 4 times a year, basically, we run education campaigns that have online resource guides, online events like this one, webinars, in-person events, workshops, networking events, awards events, that sort of thing that happen every year, where businesses can basically talk to each other and share knowledge on a net zero emissions progress, basically. So if you're an office-based business and you're thinking that you need support in your net zero journey, I encourage you to reach out to like myself if you're in the city of Melbourne, or the other program managers. So if you go to cityswitch.net.au/contact, you'll be able to find a local person for you. And if you're not in one of the participating council areas, then you can contact Annie, who's basically handles everyone else. Right. So as Zoe had before, basically there's a different scope for a NABERS Tenancy Energy rating versus a base building rating. So sometimes I get questions from members saying, my landlord already has a NABERS rating. Why do I need one? And fundamentally, it covers different scopes of energy. So what your tenancy energy rating covers is the lighting, the power to equipment, so things like server rooms, your monitors, your kitchen equipment, your printers, all of that sort of stuff that is in the office that's plugged into a socket, and also any supplementary air conditioning equipment that you might have, such as push buttons in meeting rooms, or if you've got a call center, additional air conditioning to serve that requirement above the base building. And some tenants who have large data centers also have backup generators, so it would cover fuel for that sort of use. And in very rare cases, some commercial kitchens that are responsible for tenants have gas use as well, so that would fall under that rating. I might direct you to study that CitySwitch and the Energy Efficiency Council did a couple of years ago now, but it's still quite relevant. This is sort of a breakdown of where, on average, offices use energy and what type of end use your energy would be in your office. So bear in mind that this is typical offices without supplementary air conditioning or significant data centers. So if you have those, they can kind of overwhelm all the rest of this consumption. But this is on average for a small office in a larger building. Most of your energy is going towards lighting and then your monitors. So there's sort of the things that you need to focus on when you're trying to do energy efficiency improvements in the first instance. And even before that, making sure that you have your energy metering data and understand on what level and how it's broken down between energy and lighting, it would be a key first step, understanding the patterns, that sort of thing. So lighting's the biggest one, then monitors, then computers and server equipment, and other things sort of make up the remainder. So this is sort of a guide to help you understand where to focus your efforts on energy efficiency improvements. And I do encourage you to go to the energybriefing.org.au with the sector spotlights and look at the offices one. You can read a little bit more detail about where this information's come from. So you should actually be able to click the link on the slide if you're looking at it, if you want to go and have a look at that now. So fundamentally, NABERS Tenancy Energy Ratings, the star rating is about energy efficiency. So this energy sort of overall, the sector spotlight for offices that we did with Energy Efficiency Council basically broke it down into three key things that you can do to improve your energy efficiency. So really you want to start with some quick wins in terms of what you can see, obviously, in your offices that needs fixing. So whether it's like old lighting or computers that are left on for a long period of time, or lights that are left on overnight, really just paying attention to what's going on in your office and seeing where you can make some efficiencies. And then what we're talking about now, which is NABERS Tenancy Energy Ratings, comes under benchmarking your performance. So seeing how you can basically compare to your peers of similar sizes, similar hours of operations, and say, well, do we need to improve, or are we doing pretty well? And we can fine tune our performance. And then the last thing, and the thing that I encourage everybody to do ongoing, is thinking about energy management as a discipline. So you don't need to go and get a fancy, compliance certificate to some sort of energy management standard. This is just sort of like a way of thinking about your energy efficiency journey. So some simple improvements that basically any office can do. I'll highlight three, but there's a lot more than this. Lighting, like I said, was the biggest chunk before. So if you've got old lighting, then the best thing that you can do to improve your energy efficiency is replace this with the latest and greatest LED technology, which, funnily enough, still is improving year on year in terms of its luminous efficacy, if you want to call it that, and also some smart control equipment, so like daylighting sensors. The what else can presence sensors, so like occupancy sensors, and timers as well. Even a basic push button timer in a small office can make a big difference. Other things that you might want to look at is the energy efficiency and the type of computers that you have. So it's like probably about 1/3 of the energy is used for like small laptops compared to desktop computers, and that also goes with monitors as well. Try and find your most energy efficient monitors, and even smaller monitors, or one monitor if you can get away with it. So really only using what you need. And then on top of that, buying energy efficient equipment. So if you go to energyrating.gov.au, there's actually a database that you can go and look at the star ratings of different types of equipment that you might buy. So often in previous career, I was um, telling my clients to say, well, what sort of monitors do you need to buy to get the best energy efficiency out of the future tenancy that I'm moving into? Really going and looking up that database and saying, well, setting yourself a star performance or better. So often you can get up to like 8 stars now for new monitors, which is really quite efficient. And put everything on timers as much as you can as well. So yes. What I was talking about before, the energy management as a discipline, this is really something that we want to support as CitySwitch. So we want you to improve your energy efficiency year on year, and that will relate. If you do your NABERS Tenancy Energy ratings via Co-Assess, then that will result in improved performance. So basically planning out what you want to do and delivering on that action plan. So going out and making the changes and then checking how effective those changes were. So say you replace some lighting, you had some metering data before and after, then you can actually measure how much improvements you made over time, and then basically take some time to reflect and act and manage it up to your senior people in the business, saying, this is what we've done, we've made some improvements, and we'd like you to support us to do the next thing. And then that's a cycle that we'd like to see people do year on year, basically a culture of continuous improvement. And often with energy efficiency, if you don't keep on top of it, it has a habit of becoming less efficient over time. You get some drift. So it's always pays to go back and check in on your performance year on year as well. So what resources do we have to help? Basically, we've got some practical energy efficiency guidance, updated guides. They're coming soon. They're not quite done yet, but they will be in the next month or so. So feel free to go and look at some of the resources that are there. So there is stuff there already, including a link to that energy briefing report that I mentioned earlier. We're going to run an education campaign as one of our quarterly campaigns next year. So if you're a CitySwitch member, watch out for correspondence. We've also got how to measure your baseline guidance. So talking about NABERS Tenancy Energy ratings today, basically there's some information in there that says you've got scope 1 and 2 emissions. How do you go about measuring these? And NABERS tenancy ratings are one way of doing that. If you want to improve your staff engagement on energy efficiency or other net zero topics, we've got some resources for that as well on the website, and some recordings from a previous education campaign that we did earlier this year. As well, if you're a CitySwitch member, again, it's a free to join program. You do get a discount on your administration fee for your tenancy energy ratings or whole building ratings. And you can do that, I'm pretty sure, through the co-assess process. Nod at me, Zoe, if that's correct. Yep, good. and then speak to your program manager. So that's me. If you're in the city of Melbourne, and we're here to help you on your energy management journey. So we can basically sit down with you and think about where you want to get started and what you can do. What can I do next? Yep, just reiterating what we had before. Reach out to us, CitySwitch. We try and provide a business network of like-minded businesses that are trying to achieve emissions reductions. You can contact local councils just through their concierge support system. And reiterating what Zoe said before, connect with your landlord about doing a co-assess rating and other energy efficiency improvements that you can do. Start with what can be seen, making some small wins in terms of energy efficiency. Benchmark your performance with a NABERS Tenancy Energy rating, and think about energy management as a discipline. And then on top of that, once you've got on top of your energy efficiency a little bit, think about the other ways that you can reduce carbon emissions, like we mentioned before, Zoe mentioned before, the carbon neutral standard for buildings and other sustainability opportunities, maybe some other sustainability ratings. That's it from me. I'll now hand over to Lina from Charter Hall. Lina, you might just want to press the take control button at the top there.
Yep. Is that, yeah, that's working.
Yeah, all good.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, everyone. My name is Lina Rico Gomez. I lead the ESG function for the office portfolio at Charter Hall. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do and why we are involved in NABERS Co-Assess and CitySwitch. I also joined from Gadigal Land. I'm located in Sydney, in the heart of Sydney, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So just a little bit of background about Charter Hall. We are one of the leading property investment managers. We invest in different type of property classes, asset classes. And relevant to today, we have about 1,700 properties across the country, but a portion of that is allocated to office. We manage around 114 properties across Australia, and we have one in New Zealand. So we have a very big range of office buildings, from medium rise to high rise, premium, A grade, B grade buildings across Australia, and that little one in New Zealand. We are in our sustainability journey. We have been doing sustainability for a long time, and recently you can see here a few of our highlights. We participate in NABERS consistently across NABERS, across their different benchmarks. So as Zoe was mentioning, we have NABERS has different tools, and we are very grateful for that, because we can benchmark our performance across energy, water, waste, or also indoor environment. So that helps us rate our buildings and basically promote improvements in sustainability within the portfolio and with our peers as well. So we have about 1.5 million square meters of NABERS rated space. We have the largest 5-star Green Star certified portfolio, which we just achieved very recently. And we also have our recently achieved Well at Scale, which is a well-being kind of a well-being tool to assess for tenants, basically to assess how we affect the well-being in the building. So very, very high level overview of our sustainability approach. You probably have seen something like this from other landlords. We basically approach sustainability in 4 different ways. We are looking at how to improve environmental performance, social governance, and also economic outcomes. Within those 4 buckets, we have different material topics that we think we need to address. So in the next slide, I can show you, there is a lot of text here, but these are our key priorities. As you can see, we have the usual climate action, resources, nature within our environmental bucket. In the social one, we have talent, we have customers, strong communities, but also places and the way that we approach places as well. And between social and economic, as you can see at the top, we have pathways to prosperity and shared success. And that's a little bit of a differentiator from other sustainability frameworks out there, where we basically want to make sure that if we are successful, our supply chain, our customers, our communities also share that success. And we have different ways to achieve that. Why we do NABERS Co-Assess? So within our strategy and our material topics, climate change is a big one, very big one. And that means we want to reach net zero by 2025 for our scope 1 and 2. But we are also looking at how to improve on our net zero, on our scope 3 emissions, and how to achieve net zero across our supply chain, upstream emissions and downstream emissions. So that means we want our tenants to come on board in our net zero journey. Also highlighted in yellow, you can see here partnerships, basically the way we approach customer, NABERS Co-Assess, and all these tools that help us engage with our tenants are really important. We can help our tenants understand how to improve their sustainability performance within their tenancy. We can provide support, and that also helps. At the same time, it helps our buildings to be more efficient and reach net zero faster. And then finally, at the bottom, as you can see, transparency and disclosure. So we report on their different frameworks, and you probably have seen a few of them. So besides NABERS and the rating tools that we have in Australia, we have a few international tools that we also use to report. And for those tools, we need to improve our visibility over a whole building performance. So that it is very important for us to know what the whole building is doing and how we can improve that and help our tenants to reduce their energy consumption. So for that aspect is also NABERS Co-Assess is also key for us to understand that. So yeah, as I mentioned before, net zero is a key part of our strategy. We are committed to achieve net zero for our scope 1 and 2 by 2025. And more recently, we set a target for our scope 3 target that is related to our tenants. So for us, scope 3, which are our indirect emissions or emissions where we don't have direct control, but we have some influence. That means our tenants. We have set a target to reduce emissions by 52% by 2030. And that is going to require a lot of collaboration with our tenants across the portfolio. What are we doing? What are we doing to achieve net zero? We have recently signed an agreement with an energy retailer called ENGIE. They are going to provide us with renewable electricity across our whole portfolio for base building. So that means that on the tenant side, we encourage our tenants to also procure renewable electricity, improve their energy efficiency across in their tenancy. That's the easiest and cheapest way to reduce your energy consumption. Rating your tenancy is the first step to do that. So NABERS Co-Assess or any tool that you can use to baseline your performance is going to help with that. Finally, well, this is something really important. The base building is only 50% of the picture of a building, of the energy consumption and emissions of a building. So we do need our tenants to come on board to ensure that we can achieve the net zero targets, to maintain our real estate portfolio aligned with 1.5 degrees, with 1.5 degree scenarios, meet our Paris Agreement commitments. So we need to work collaboratively to ensure that we can reach net zero as soon as possible. you please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, if you want to learn more about what we do in sustainability for buildings. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it on to Abby, I think.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lina. How are you?
Yeah, good.
So as Lina would have mentioned, CBRE has been engaged by multiple clients and landlords to help them through their ESG and NABERS journey. And one of those clients are Charter Hall. So CBRE have a dedicated team of assessors that work on the Charter Hall office portfolio, and we rate majority of their office assets. Since Charter Hall offers Co-Assess for free, the team have seen significant uptake in participation with the tenants, with about 89 tenants participating since Jan this year. So we've discussed this a few times already, but let's jump into why Co-Assess. Co-Assess is probably the easiest and most cost-effective way for any tenant to participate or achieve a NABERS energy rating. It is easier, obviously, because the landlord is required to maintain an active NABERS energy rating and peak in order for them to lease, sublease, or even sell their property. So that gives you the opportunity to jump on board every year with the base building rating. It also takes away the administrative challenges of engaging an assessor. That's up to the landlord, and you just get to enjoy that. And Zoe mentioned this earlier, the certification cost with the Co-Assess rating is significantly lower when compared to going out on your own. Once you get certified, it does create an opportunity for you to benchmark yourselves against your peers. It gets you to kind of understand how your tenancy is performing against similar tenancies your size. And in the event the rating is not what you were after, it does nothing but create an opportunity for you to implement efficiency measures that will take you through a journey to improve your star rating. So what do you need to do if you're interested? All you need to do is reach out to your building manager or property manager, let them know you're keen to participate in Co-Assess during the next NABERS rating. Following that, the landlord will inform their assessors, who will then reach out to you requesting your utility information, your access to your tenancy, and potentially floor plans or desk layouts. This is all the information you need or the assessor needs in order to get your rating certified. NABERS will then be able to give you, thanks Zoe, Charter Hall building. NABERS will then be able to provide you with a NABERS energy certificate, which will display your star rating. And if you purchase any renewable energy, it'll be displayed on there as well. Right here would be the opportunity for you to reach out to CitySwitch, NABERS, even your assessors to find a way to improve your rating if 5 stars isn't good enough. We still have one more star to go. But literally, it's very, very simple steps that we need to take in order for us to get a rating. The landlords will be nothing but happy, but to engage with you, they're looking for reasons to get their tenants on board and how we can do it. So if you are interested, please reach out to your landlords. Any of us on this call will be happy to help you through that journey. But with that, I'll hand back over to Jack.
Thank you, Abby. I'll take that back. Basically, we're at the end of the formal presentation now. So that was our last slide. What I might do is I will go back to an earlier slide, have a little placeholder there. Now's the opportunity to ask some questions of our presenters and myself. Anything about the Co-Assess process, CitySwitch, Charter Hall, CBRE. We've got 15 more minutes. So what I might do is allow everyone to put on their cameras, and then if you have a question, you can either put it in the Q&A section and we can answer it that way, or we can, put up your hand and I'll unmute you so then you can ask your question verbally. So let's go, everyone. Do we have a first question, first cab off the rank for questions? Anyone?
I can ask a question to Abby. We can start.
Yeah, why not?
Just to kick
Abby,
it
you
off.
start. Yeah.
I just want to know if so CBRE has been doing our ratings for a long time. It's kind of an in-house model, and I want to maybe if Abby can elaborate a little bit on how you find the process of your assessors doing the base building rating along with NABERS CoAssess. Is that does it take much more time? Do you find that it's efficient? Yeah, just a few insights on that. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think we talked about this earlier when Zoe was mentioning if our assessors are completing the base building rating, they're there anyway. So co-assess is probably the easiest way for any of our assessors to complete a tenancy rating. They'll be able to visit your tenancy while they're there to complete the base building rating, sit down, actually catch up with the tenant. So all of the assessors are looking for opportunities to engage more with your tenants. They don't want to just walk in and walk out. They'll be able to sit down with you, talk you through what they're actually going to look at, what they're capturing, how we're actually completing an assessment. It's definitely the most efficient way for both the assessor as well as the tenant to get the rating, because we're there, we're here to help you. And from the landlord's perspective, it's just like, hey, guess what? You have 5 tenants in this building that's very, very interested in sustainability, and they're looking for ways to improve. So it's a win-win from every angle. I don't see any assessors having a problem with that.
Cool. I might get Pratik's put an answer in the a question in the Q&A. So Pratik, did you want to nod your head if you want to ask that? Repeat your question out loud. Is that okay? Yep. Go for it. You can unmute yourself.
Hi all.
Yep. Sorry, Pratik, you're gonna have to try that again. Try to unmute yourself once more.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Excellent. Third time lucky. Fantastic presentation, everyone. And Lina and Abhi, fantastic to see you, and Zoe as well. It's feels like a friends reunion, but anyway, with regards to the question that I had, I've been quite intrigued by that split of the energy consumption between the base building and the tenancy, and I was wondering if you have a historical trend line that shows what was the split before. I believe back in the days of the T5s and the T8s, or maybe before that, probably 60% split would be for the base building and the tenancy would be slightly lower. And it's going towards 50%. And I believe with higher push towards ESG for the base building, they're always trying to squeeze through, and ultimately the tenancy share would be bigger. Thoughts, comments, resources?
I'll let Zoe answer that one first.
Super interesting question, Pratik, and we haven't done any more recent research at NABERS. I think it's a really, when I saw Lina with a 50% on there, I was thinking back to sort of 10 years ago when we used to say that 40-60 and going, okay, great. And that is kind of demonstrating a bit of a lag, right? The landlords are racing ahead with that efficiency, and potentially, tenants are either sitting in spaces that aren't using as up-to-date technology, or they've gone for the look versus the efficiency when they've done the fit out. I think maybe Lina and Abby, you might know a little bit more about the latest numbers on that.
I'm happy to jump in. Sorry, you go, Lina.
Yeah, well, it depends also on the type of, it's about 50% from what I've seen lately, but it might change. It depends on the building. Some buildings where we have big data users, so trading floors and things like that, they use much more energy than the building. Like, it depends really. But for an average tenancy or typical building, let's say, I think that's the latest that I am aware of. But Abby, you have maybe more up-to-date data.
You probably, I would have said the exact same thing. You would have assessors in general have access to a lot of this information, especially across states like Queensland and WA, where we have embedded networks. So you have visibility into the amount of energy used by tenants. And like you said, Lina, it depends on the number of hours that tenant is operating. If it's a call center, you're operating 24/7. So it's not really equal representation, which is why we have NABERS in place to say they take into account the number of hours you operate. So one tenant might be using, a building might have 50% of their consumption related to tenancy. Some buildings might have 30%. I think it just depends on the type of tenant that's in that building.
Thank you, everyone. Another question for you, Abby, from Adam Bentley. Roughly, what is the additional time/cost to a landlord to offer free ratings to tenants? How many hours extra for work for the assessor?
So in our case right now with the Charter Hall assets, the reason it doesn't really work up to cost is because we have dedicated assessors focused on that account. So we don't really do the math behind the cost, but on average, it just, I'd say, add in at least 2 to 3 hours for each tenancy. This is me assuming your tenancy is a whole floor and not a small suite, just so that it gives the assessor enough time to engage with that tenant if required. The additional cost depends on consultant to consultant. I couldn't really comment on how much anyone would charge.
I forgot to mention we do offer free ratings, NABERS Co-Assess ratings. That was important. That was very important. But Charter Hall offers free ratings, NABERS Co-Assess ratings for our tenants. And the reason for that is we see the value in supporting our tenants to reduce their energy efficiency. So if you consume less energy, that's going to help with decarbonizing. That's going to help with our efforts to achieve net zero. So yeah, it's not, and it's not a big cost for us because we have that in-house model of assessors. Is, you know, it's just a couple more hours they need to spend there. But if you are doing it outsourced with a consultant, it might be a bit of an extra couple of hours.
Zoe, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add, you know, some landlords might not be as generous as Charter Hall and they may pass on some of that cost. That is still going to be more an efficient cost structure than going out and contracting your own assessor just to do your tenancy. So even if they are not quite as generous as Charter Hall, which is an amazing proposition to offer those for free, it's definitely still going to be useful to, you know, add a little bit of that cost on if it's a couple of hours versus the entire rating cost. So yeah, talk to your landlord. Talk to your landlord definitely if you're Charter Hall, in a Charter Hall building. And
yeah, I think if we can get tenants to push their landlords to do co-assess as well, then, you know, if it's coming from their tenants and they're asking for it, then it will make them change as well. So yes, please reach out to whoever your landlord is, and yeah, like Zoe said, even if it costs you a little bit more, then it's not going to be the same as just doing a tenancy rating on your own. And better yet, find out if there's any other CitySwitch members in your building, and then you can band together and get it done at the same time. Share some more costs. You know, efficiency in numbers. Zoe, I might give you another question to answer. It's from Anna Darcy at asking about their building's rating at 5 stars and purchase 100% green energy. How does energy intensity come into a rating? You've got 267 megajoules per square meter. How do you know if it's good? And maybe this is an opportunity to look at the new certificate format.
Yeah, I don't have an example of the new certificate format, but that megajoule by meter squared intensity figure has always been part of the rating. How do you know it's good? The star rating is the result of whether the rating is good or not. So that intensity figure is useful if you're tracking, you know, the fine detail, but the measure of, you know, how does that compare against others is your benchmark. So if you're 5-star, doing really well in that building, and 5-star and 100% green power, we love to see it.
So, and I suppose a clarification on that, Zoe, in the old format of certificates, you had the rating with green power and the rating without green power. And now the rating, the energy efficiency, so the star rating only looks at the energy efficiency, and then you've got a renewable energy score. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. So in the bad old days last year, You did get a sort of star rating benefit, as Jack was saying, for having green power. So that doesn't sit on the rating anymore. You can still find that number. So you can see, okay, if we were accounting for that green power, what would that impact our star rating? But we're moving away from that because it is about that rating being used for the performance of the building, and that the renewable source is a separate part of and being recognised as part of the renewable energy indicator. So yeah, that's absolutely it. The star rating is just your performance.
Excellent, Anna. I hope that answers your question. Anyone else have a question? You're not buying our 5 stars. Yeah, fair enough. Anyone else that would like to answer the question? We've got time for one more. So anyone feel like they want to have, a burning question around tenancy ratings or the co-assess process? That's why we're here. Maybe not. I might leave it there then. So what I might do is thank you to Zoe, to Lina, to Abby for joining CitySwitch and talking about the NABERS Co-Assess process, and reiterating that if you, please feel free to reach out to all of us, especially me at CitySwitch. I can direct you to the right person. Thank you very much for your attendance today. And this webinar has been recorded. So yeah, we will keep you informed once this goes up on the website. And yeah, let us know if you need any assistance around NABERS or energy efficiency. So thanks very much. Excellent.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing, Jack.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone. And see you soon.
Bye. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.